We are about to begin page 35, Daf Lamed Hey in the Tractate Shabbat. We're going to discuss a few important things. First of all, the issue of השמשות, which is a time that we're not sure if it's a day or night, and you see a lot of halachic implications. Also, we're going to discuss time allow, the concept of Teki'ot shofar in the ancient time versus in our times. In answer to your question, we all faced this terrible event in the past week with Hurricane Sandy. So I want you to know that in the history of this country, of the United States, on December 1914, in West Orange, New Jersey, it was a factory that goes up in smoke, and the fire totally destroyed $2 million worth of property. And in those days, the insurance was only for $238,000. And the next day, the owner, which was a 67-year-old man that was a inventor, he have a tremendous score of accomplishments to his name. He set out to rebuild, and they continue in year and year to produce new product and inventions. At that moment of loss, this Thomas Edison did not see any type of destruction. He saw at the time of loss a great opportunity. It's a well-known statement that he made at that time, and he said to his family, this is a great value in disaster. All of our mistakes are burned up, and thank God we can start from the beginning anew. So for sure, if you had to do it again, Thomas Edison for sure not volunteer to destroy his company. But still, there is a very important concept we have to learn, that there is a potential benefit to disaster. It's not that we wish it, but nothing was going to change the fact that the factory was burned. Nothing changed the fact that we faced this hurricane. But by the same time, we have an opportunity now to rebuild. This is a great time to do a teshuvah, to do a self-search, and to rebuild. It is a very famous statement that Ibn Ezra, the 12th century Sephardic rabbi, said, and he said, I said it first in Hebrew and then in English. He said, Adam doeg al ibud yamav, ve'eno doeg ibud yamav, ve'eno doeg al ibud yamav. A person is worried about losing his money, but does not worry about losing his days. Damav einam ozrim, yamav einam chozrim, meaning his money is no help, and his days won't come back. So isn't that the truth? That you see that we spend so much time earning our money and managing our money, and there are some people who are very obsessed with gathering the money, to get the possessions, getting all the involvement with money, but then you reach a point in your life, you ask yourself the true question that Ibn Ezra asked, and he said that Adam doeg al ibud damav. You ask yourself, did I make an error in all my life? I'm worrying about the money, not about my days. The truth is, if you make the error, then that Ibn Ezra recognizes so beautifully, and he's worrying about our money and not about our days, then our wallet may end up full, but our days will end up empty. So this is an opportunity to think and understand that yes, disaster occurred, but we can rebuild and make something good out of all of that. We always remember what Reb Nachman of Breslov used to say: if we believe in the ability to destroy, we can believe in the ability to rebuild, to tikkun olam, and that's what we're doing here when we study the Gemara, 2 lines from the top of page 35.
Rabbi, before we start, just a comment I wanted to make and a question also is, it seems to me, even though Bein השמשות is questionable as to whether it's the next day or the previous day, on Shabbat, both at the before Shabbat and after Shabbat, it's always included as part of the Shabbat day. It's never, is that correct? So the Bein HaShemashot is included as part of Shabbat on both the beginning and the end.
V'asur siyag laTorah. The sages always putting boundaries to make sure that people are not violating Shabbat. So the whole idea of incorporating Bein HaShemashot is in order to make sure that people not enter the domain of violation. You know that this week we changed the clock, we're going back in time, and Shabbat begins earlier, and people have a hectic day. So if you incorporate those 18 minutes and you incorporate the time of Bein HaShemashot, you save people from violation of Shabbat. V'chilufei bechalta, 2 lines from the top. So now we discuss also a kaveret, which is the legal status with a weak vessel, which means smaller vessels. There is the dispute in the opposite, which means the size of the vehicle that Rav Yosef speaks was the largest one. The Amar Rava, Chalta, which is that Chalta is like a place that you have the bees, the beehives, right? That but Trei Korei, that it have the size of the 2 kur, which is the capacity of 2 kur. It's a little smaller than the one we discussed earlier. Ubat lata kore asur letaltela. So here the point is, you have sometimes a situation that this huge vessel, people don't move them. It's a large vessel that's staying. So even during the week, people don't move that vehicle, big vehicle from one location to another. So the Rav Yosef Amar Batlata Kore Name Share Bat Arba Kore Asu. So here they're speaking about the size. Rav Yosef said that if you have a vessels with capacity with 3 core, so it's permitted to move it. But if it's one with capacity of 4, it's prohibited to move. So basically, he speaks about a size. That the moment you move, that it's basically creating a carrying, a tiltul. Amar Abaye, Ba'amine. So here you see when Rabbah is much more stricter. Ba'amine Demar. I want to ask the master, which is the Rabbah, if I allow to carry that or not, the kaveret. Bishat Maaseh. So we're not going to ask this question in the sense of a theoretical question, but it's a practical question. Va'afilu batrei kor elo sharali. So even that it's in the size of 2 kor, I cannot carry it. Keman, kuhum do you hold? Kehaita naditnan. Kaveret akash. This is a text in the Tractate Kelim, page 15. It speaks about kaveret hakash. So the kaveret hakash is like a barrel that carry a straw, and the kaveret hakanim, and round barrel of the reeds. Ubo, bo is like a pit, or it's a very large vessel that carry a water, and you call it here cistern. And Sfina Alexandrite, the Alexandrian ship. So it's basically giving the need of large quantity of potable water on the long sea journeys, a very large receptacle fashioned from the animal hides was placed in the deck of the ship and filled it with the water. So that's again is a large size. Even though they have the bottoms, which means they are very receptacles. But since והן מחזיקות 40 שאה בלח, שהן קוראים ביבש טהורים. But since they have a capacity of 40 se'ah of liquid, which is the equivalent of 2 core of dry goods, they are basically tehurim, they are ritually pure, right? So even they connected to some type of ritual impurity, so they don't become tameh. So what we, Amar Abaye Shmamina, so Abaye said we learn from that, Hai Gudsha Tilta Have, we learn from that the surplus of dry good in a vessel relative to liquid in 1/3 of the content of the vessel. So he said that if they says that in the Mishnah the vessels can be hold 40 seah liquid, holds a 2 core of dry produce, which is the equivalent of 60 seah. So that's a situation that is a very large size. So now, after we discuss this part, we entered again to the previous discussion, which is the Bein Hashmashot, the question that Dave asked earlier. So the question is, when we are standing at the closest time that is dark, when we consider that as a night of the following day or not. An example why it's crucial, we mentioned the previous shiur, if you have a baby that was born on Friday. So if it's in Ben Hashmashot, you have the issue of violation of Shabbat, which is, since we count 8 days from the time that the baby is born, so if it's Friday, and the baby was born before the sunset, which is the Bein Hashmashot, but it's twilight and it's not fully dark, then the following Shabbat, which is the 8 days, you can go ahead and ask the Mohel to do the Brit, the circumcision. And he is not in violation of Shabbat, even he does that in the 8 days, because the Torah said in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, that in the 8 days is the time to do the circumcision. So that, in a sense, overrides some halachot of Shabbat.
Now, how far can he go in something like that? Obviously, we know he can carry the tools that he needs.
Whatever the Moel needs to do.
So even like nowadays, like driving would.
No.
Just essentially carrying. Essentially carrying his ways.
The point is, even to do which we call Chabala, he's creating, quote unquote, some type of damage on Shabbat.
Right.
He's doing wound to the baby in that sense, or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's type of work. You have to admit that it's involved work.
Right.
Even it's quick.
Right.
So the point is, you can do it on Shabbat if it's the exact 8th day, because the Torah said, "Ubayom hashmini yimol besar or latoa." The 8th day, you should do the Brit Milah, the circumcision. But
there are limits as to what violations he can commit on the Shabbat in order to do it.
Things that he needs to do in order to perform the Brit there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's Ben Hashmashot and you tell me that it's already considering, even it's ereded, but it's considering the next day, which is, it's dark, it's twilight, but it's appear like dark, so then the 8 days when it's a Sunday, not this Sunday, the following Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's following Sunday, you cannot do anything but the following Shabbat. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here is the discussion. Abaye chazye lerava deka da'avei lema'arav. Abaye saw that Rava was gazing westward, which is the Friday afternoon, the Shabbat Eve, to determine whether or not the sky was red or whether it was a twilight. He wasn't so sure. So he was looking. So Amar lei, so Abaye asked Rava, Vehatanya kol zman shepnei mizrach ma'adimim. He said to him, so wasn't it taught in a Braita that twilight is from when the sun set, as long as the eastern face of the sky is reddened by the light of the sun. So why are you looking at the west part? Amar lei mi savart pnei mizrach mamash. Do you mean to say that it's really eastern face? No, that's not the point. Pa'ela, you have to say, the only way is panim hama'adimim et amizrach. You have to look at the sky, what the causes the east to redden, which is the west. So you basically look at the opposite way, because that's the cause of the color of the redness. Ika de Amre, there is another way to look at that. And he said, Rav Achazi la'Abaye dekadao el hamizrach. Rav saw Abaye that he looked at the eastern side. Amar le Rav asked Abaye, Mi savart pe mizrach mamash? Do you mean to say really you gaze to the east? And he said, no, panim המאדימין את המזרח, which means the face of the west. So when the light of the sun it's about to diminish, you know, it's because of it's getting close and it's a redden, right? So therefore you have to look at the west. Vesimanach, and I give you an example to that. And he said, kavta. Kavta is a widow. As is on the wall opposite the window that one can see how much sunlight is shining through. So when you look at the window, you can see the other way around. Rabbi Nehemiah Omer, the time of Ben Hashmashot is כדי שיהלך אדם משתשקה חמה חצי מיל. And the person walk a half a mile after the sunset. אמר רבי חנינא, הרוצה לידע שיעורו של רבי נחמיה. If you want to know when it's a clear night, when it's considering a clear night, Rashba explained that you want to find the somehow exact time. יניח חמה בראש הכרמל, there is a Mount Carmel being close to Haifa, right? That the sun is there. So when he sees from the top of the mountain that it's close to the join the water, right? So he moved, וירד ויטבול בים. He goes down and he duck in the water. ויעלה, and he go back to the top of the hill. וזהו שיעורו של רבי נחמיה. So the minute he descend and immerse himself in the sea and emerge, that's the Nehemiah measure of the duration of the twilight. אמר רבי חייא. Now Rabbi Xiya said something fascinating, and he said, הרוצה לראות בעירה של מרים. The Gemara said in Ta'anit, page 9, that it was a well of Miriam, the prophetess, that went from one location to another while the children of Israel went to the desert. So they have a place to drink all the time. It's like a miracle that moved with them one place to another. So the Torah said that when Miriam passed, so it wasn't water and she was buried there. And then they said that it wasn't v'lo haya mayim la'eda, it wasn't enough water for the congregation. So that's called Be'era shel Miriam, the well of Miriam. So that's the famous biblical rock that Moses hit in order to return and bring water. So they said here, if someone wants to see the Miriam's well, which accompany the Jewish people through their sojourn in the desert, יעלה לראש הכרמל, he needs to go to the top of the Mount Carmel, ויצפה ויראה, he look upon the water, and he will see a large rock, כמין קברה, that it's like a sieve of the sea, בים, וזוהי בעירה של מרים, and that's considering the well of Miriam. אמר רב, מעיין המיטלטל, so he said if you have a ma'ayan, it's like one spring water that move from another location to one location to another. So you have to know that since it's not fully attached to the ground, it's a ta'or, that his water is not accepting any type of impurity, because it's like very deeply connected to the ground. You call this the tehom abyss. What is it?
So the abyss is the deepest part of the sea.
The deepest.
Yeah.
So basically, it's coming from there, and therefore, because the water it's connected in that sense so much to the ground. V'zeu be'era shel Miriam. It's like, in a sense, it's not nothing that was created. It was basically something that moved, that relocated from one it's movable spring. That's the point. אמר רב יהודה, אמר שמואל, בין השמשות דרבי יהודה הכהנים טובלים בו. So he said here that the time that is בין השמשות, the twilight, what the Rabbi Yehuda said earlier, that's the part of the machloket between Rabbi and Rav Yosef. So the priest, the Kohanim, that they are impure, they can duck in the water and they can eat truma when the sun sets at the end of Bein HaShmashot. Because basically Kohen that became impure, he cannot eat the truma. And he needs to go and duck himself in the kosher mikveh. And then when it's a Arev Shemesh, when it's a Laila, he can go ahead and eat the truma. So up to that point, as long as he's not duck himself or it's not dark yet, so he is impure. So Shmuel said here that if someone duck in the water in the time of Bein HaShmashot, which is the time of the twilight, so it's considering as someone who's duck himself during the day, and therefore if at the end of Bein HaShmashot he goes and it's already dark, so it's pure to go and eat the truma. So you see the twilight is crucial even in that sense, for eating truma for the Kohen. Lemai, to whom, which Tana Shmuel said that the Kohanim duck in Bein HaShmashot in twilight, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Ilema le Rabbi Yehuda, that he said that the Kohanim can duck themselves in the mikveh when the time is at twilight, and they can go ahead and eat the teruma at the end of Bein HaShmashot, at the end of twilight. It can be why sfeikahu. Sfeikahu meaning you have a doubt. You're not sure if it's a previous day or the upcoming night, which is the upcoming day. So since he didn't do it and it's a sfeika, it's not clear if it's a day or night. So it's considering someone who duck himself in a sense prematurely, and therefore he needs to wait the following day. He cannot do it right away. Ela Bein HaShmashot de Rabbi Yehuda, but you have to say that this Bein HaShmashot, this twilight, is according to Rabbi Yehuda. Le Rabbi Yossi Kohanim tovlim bo. According to Rabbi Yossi, Kohanim can duck themselves. So which means that according to Rabbi Yossi, it starts only at the end of the time of twilight of Rabbi Yehuda. So according to Rabbi Yossi, all the Kohanim that they basically duck themselves in the time in between that it's considering twilight, they can duck himself and can go ahead and eat truma right away. So they said pshita. So we understand obviously that what Rabbi Yossi said is at the end of the time of Bein HaShmashot, the twilight of Rabbi Yehuda. What's the chidush? What's the something that you that new that you derive from that? Mao the time Yomei said that Bein HaShmashot Rabbi Yossi meishach shayech bid Rabbi Yehuda, that maybe Rabbi Yehuda sometimes agree to a situation like the twilight, that is certain seconds, certain moments that he agrees that you can go ahead and do it, and it's considering fine, and right away you can eat the truma. Kamash Melan, Shmuel come to teach us the shalim Bein HaShmashot de Rabbi Yehuda vehadar matchil Bein HaShmashot Rabbi Yossi, which means Rabbi Yossi can hold only at the absolute last moment of Rabbi Yehuda, which means is no chafifa, is no time that connected to both of them. It's like you split those seconds between the two, and one is in a sense nothing to do with the next one. So final halacha, Amar Rabba Babachan Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halacha כרבי יהודה לעניין שבת, והלכה כרבי יוסי לעניין תרומה. He said that halacha according to Rabbi Yehuda in regard to matter of Shabbat, so Rabbi Yossi in regard to matter of Truma. So the Gemara asks, Bish lama halacha k'Rabbi Yehuda l'inyan Shabbat lechumra, which means we are forbidden. Rashi explained that we are forbidden to do any type of work when it's very close to Shabbat, it's a twilight, and therefore he said that anybody who's involved in any work that is a twilight already, he needs to bring a special offering at the time of the temple that is called Asham Talui Misafek, that because it's a potential that he is in violation of Shabbat, even it's Safek, it's a doubt, it's not clear, he needs to bring a special offering. So that's where I understand that it's a Chumrah, which means that Rashi explained that it has to be complete Shabbat in both ending, which is the twilight of Friday night and the Shabbat is over in fully, not when it's about to dark on Motzei Shabbat. Aval, in regard to Rabbi Yossi l'inyan Truma, Maihi, what exactly halacha follow Rabbi Yossi? Ileima litvila, which means that the Kohanim can go at the time of Bein HaShmashot, the twilight, and they can duck themselves in the mikveh and they allow to eat truma right away at that night. It cannot be. Why? He said, Sfeikahi, because it's a doubt, it's uncertainty with regard to that Torah law. So why would the ruling be more lenient in the case of the case of Shabbat? Because what Rabbi Yossi said, that he allowed them to go and duck themselves in the time of twilight, it may be wrong. It may be it's either already night or it's day. It's not clear. It's feikas. Feika meaning that you are in doubt. You're not sure which way is the correct way. So now we turn to page 35b. Ela le'achilat truma de'lo ach lekohanim truma de'shalim ben השמשות de'Rabbi Yossi. But you have to say that Rabbi Yochanan is more stricter than Rabbi Yossi in regards to eating truma. Why? And the Kohanim cannot eat truma until they duck themselves early enough, and then whenever is the fully twilight of Rabbi Yossi, because if you go by Rabbi Yossi and the night is not until the end of Bein HaShmashot, at the end of the twilight, so Tosefet here explained to us that the Bein HaShmashot of Rabbi Yossi it's start right away at the end of Bein HaShmashot of Rabbi Yehuda. Otherwise, why we need to mention all of that? So anyway, it's like those split second between the two. He says, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Kochav Echad. So when do you know about the night? So if you see one single star, Yom is still a matter of day. Shnayim ben hashmashot. If there are two stars, it's already twilight moments. Shlosha laila. If you see three, it's a laila. So, by the way, later we study a practical halacha. You see the Mishnah Berurah said that if you see a three stars, not according to the Taz, but the Mishnah Berurah, even they are not connected to one location, but they are spread around, you need to move your eyes, it's already considering the following day. It's an example we mentioned earlier with the baby born, just an example why it's crucial. Or to make it Teki'at Shabbat, etc. Tanya Me'achi, Kochav Echad Yom, Shnayim ben hashmashot, Shlosha laila. The same thing. If it's one star is a day, two it's a twilight, three it's already night. Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said in regard to these stars, we are talking here לא בכוכבים גדולים הנראים ביום ולא כוכבים קטנים שנראים אלא בלילה אלא בינוניים. There is a different size of stars. Those who are familiar with the astronomy and the stars, they know that there is different size of stars. So here we don't talk about large one or too small one, but you talk about middle star. The Meiri said that there is certain star for people who not carry binocular, that they have a hard time to see what's exactly the size of the star. But here they speak about middle size, that's considering a night, following night. So now, since we studied earlier that Bein HaShmashot, the twilight, it's a question if it's a day of night, and someone who did a work in the eve of Shabbat, or when it's Motzei Shabbat but it's Bein HaShmashot, he needs to bring a special offering. It's called Hasham Talui Misafek. So now, if something is clear, so we go to different stage, we see it, which is the sin offering. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Zvi osem lacha b'shnei Bein HaShmashot, which means if someone did type of work on Friday afternoon and on Motzei Shabbat on Saturday, what it's not fully sunset, chayav chatat, he need to bring a sin offering if it's a clear that he did it on purpose. So he said, Mima nafshach, how do you explain this? We have to say, either you tell me that it's before, that's too earlier, or you tell me too late. So pick and choose what type of violation he was. If you tell me that it's if he did type of work in both days, right? So you basically need to bring two. And if you tell me that he needs to bring one, which one of the two he is in violation? So you basically said that pick and choose. If you tell me Asham Talui Misafek, we know that we're not sure. But if you say that Chatat, which means the sin offering, that is in a clear violation, what exactly are you talking about violation? When it is? The Friday night or Saturday evening? Amar le Rava le Shammai, Rava said to his attendants, in order to be very cautious in doing work on the eve, Friday afternoon, atun delokim luchu b'shiura derabanan. He says, you that are not expert in the measure of the sages, which means you don't know exactly when is the time of the Bein HaShmashot, the twilight. Ad shimsha areish diklei atlu shraga. You know what you do? When you see the sun at the top of the palm trees, light the Shabbat light. Which means don't take a chance to go further. B'yom ha'meunan. But if it's a very cloudy day, when they stop doing work, said b'mata chazet tarnegola, in the cities that you have rooster, right? So you can stop at that time because they sit on the beams, the rooster, at that time when they're done. So you know it's already night. Davra, right, in the field. So he said Orvei, you look at the raven, because the ravens return to the nest when the evening started. Iname, Adane, you can watch the plant, it's called Adane, right, that because they turn westward in the evening. So when you look at that, turn westward in the evening, so you know that that's the time, it's already the following night. Tanu Rabbanan. I remember in my childhood, they used to have a siren that the kids used to take turns on Friday before Shabbat in a religious neighborhood. They make this big siren, and they turn the siren before Shabbat, so people knew that it's already started Shabbat. The Shulchan Aruch in Reish Tun Vav said that it was a time, ancient time, that they used to blow the shofar, tell people that the Shabbat begins and stop doing any type of work. Tanu Rabbanan, Shesh Teki'ot, they used to do a 6 blast of shofar. Rashi and Tosefet explain here in the Ritva, they explain that it was a special 6, like Teki'at, Teruah, Teki'ah, and then Teki'at, Teruah, Teki'ah, that it's a 6 blast of shofar in order to tell people that the Shabbat is coming. And it's the purpose. Rishona, the first blast, le'avtil et ha'amim melacha shebasadot, to tell people to stop the work in the field. It's enough time for them to come. So people know to come, right? That's number 1. Shniya, lehavtil, to tell all the people that that they tell people to close the stores. Shlishit, to tell people the third time, להדליק את הנר. This is the time to light the candles. Divrei Rabbi Natan, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Omer, Rabbi Nasi disagree, and he said, Shlishit lachlotz tefillin. Since the time of putting tefillin is all day, and it was a time, the Gemara said in Eruvim Tzadik Vav, that it was a time, in the Talmudic time, that people were tefillin all day long. One of my Rebbeim, may rest in peace, of Chaim Pinchas Sheinberg, he wrote the Askama of one of my books. So he used to wear tefillin all day long. I have another rabbi, Abutbul, good friend of mine, that he used to wear 2 tefillin, 2 pair of tefillin, Russian Rabbeinu Tam, all day long. So since the mitzvah of tefillin it's all day, and the time of the Talmud it was many that were tefillin all day, and since the Shabbat is not the time to putting tefillin, right? So you have to take off the tefillin before the beginning of Shabbat. So according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the 4th blast of the shofar, it's in order to tell people to light the candles, which means the 3rd one is just to take off the tefillin. Veshohe, kedei tzliyat dan katan. You are the chef, you know, that take time to make a small fish, sometimes more than the big one. Time to make it fully cooked. Or kedei le'adbik pat batanur, in order to make the pot, as we said in the Mishna in 19, that they put the certain dough in the stove in order that yikarmu panea, that they get a color inside the pot. In those days, they used to stick the pot, the dough, to the walls of the stove, large stove, in order for that to observe the temperature, and it's basically change the color. So they do it in a very last moment. Vetokea umeria vetokea veshovet. So he blow several times, and then he stop, because that's already the third blast of the shofar. It's a time to light candle. Okay? So the Rosh learned from that by lighting candles, it's not necessarily interconnected with accepting the Shabbat. Which means, if you tell me that the accepting of Shabbat is dependent on lighting candles, so people are never allowed to do any type of work after lighting candles, even that it's not dark yet. But according to the Rosh, accepting on Shabbat is dependent upon the Barchu in the Ma'ariv prayer on Shabbat. Not everyone agree with the Rosh. There are others who hold, they say that the minute you're accepting upon yourself Shabbat when you're lighting candles, so you're accepting Shabbat upon yourself. Many others, like the Ritva, the Shulchan Aruch said in Reis Amigimel, many more, the Mishnah Brura, etc., they hold that when you're saying Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, then you're accepting Shabbat upon yourself. It's a different opinion. The Ran disagree, but it's important to know. Later we have a practical halacha, so we discuss this. So anyway, he said, and in conclusion, he said, Minag avotem beyedehem. That's the minhag they have since their ancestors. In other words, that's the way that their fathers that were handed down to them. Matne la Rav Yehuda Rav Yitzchak Brei, Rav Yehuda teaches son Rabbi Yitzchak, Shniya le'adlik et haner. The second one of the 6 blasts is in order to light the candles. Keman, whom we holding it? Lo ke Rabbi Natan, not according to Rabbi Natan, that we hold that the third blast of the shofar is to proclaim to light the candles. V'lo ke Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, not according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that he hold that the fourth of the blast of the shofar is an announcement that to start it. By the way, the Maharal hold in the Gur Aryeh, Yavetz also hold that way, that's not the way that they did it in the Babylon. It was different. Anyway, Ela Shlishit, we have to say that that's applied to the third blast, right? So that's, they announce, Le'adlik et haner, to light the candles, Keman, who hold it? Ke Rabbi Natan. That's the earlier Rabbi Natan that said it. Tana de Rabbi Ishmael. Now we elaborate on the 6th blast of the shofar. Shesh Teki'ot tokim erev Shabbat. The 6th blast of shofar they did. התחילו לתקוע תקיעה ראשונה. When he blessed the first one, נמנעו העומדים בשדה מלעדו. People who are in the field, they stop plowing, stop ומלאך הראש, ומלעשות כל מלאכה בשדות. They just stop doing all the whoring, plowing, and performing a labor in the field. And then they gather together to the city. ואין הקרובים רשאים להיכנס עד שיבואו רחוקים. Those walking that walk close to the city is not permitted to enter the city until those who walk further away comes in. וייכנסו כולם כאחד. Everybody will enter the city together, which means no one suspected the people will enter later that they continue the walk in violation even after they make a blast of the shofar, which means because everybody knows everyone and they don't want to embarrass or to put down people in one location that like they're in violation of what the rabbis already instituted, that the blowing the shofar means you have to stop to do your work. But people still have the store open even after the first blasting of the shofar. Utrisin munachim, which means they are ready to close, but if you look at the shuk, for example, right? So they have at the entrance of the stores, they have this trisim that they put them outside, and when you see them ready to pull down that cover, you know that the merchants are about to close the store, but it's still open, you can still purchase, but it's the very last moment before they're closing their stores, right? And then, התחיל לתקוע תקיעה שנייה, when he start the second תקיעה, Tosefot said that that's applied to teruah, like the staccato, right? נסתלקו התריסים וננעלו החנויות. That's the time that they close the stores, they pull out the cover of the store, boom, they close them. And the third one, ועדיין חמין מונחים על גבי קירה, right? In the Rashi explained at the time in Talmud, the wine was very strong. And because the wine was very strong, they always must combine with water before they drink it. So they have a water on this, kira, a place that they put the water, right, to warm it.
Stove, yeah.
What?
Stove.
Ukdeirot, and this big pot that they prepare food for Shabbat. Munachot al gabei kira, they standing on the top of the stove. התחיל לתקוע תקיעה שלישית, when he starts the third blast of the Shabbat, right, the third one, סילק המסלק, that the one who has these different pots on the top of the stoves, for all the meals that upcoming Shabbat, they take out. Why? Because the Rashba explained we cannot do that on Shabbat. Why? Because if you eat from that, you have to take it out and wrap it with a blanket like doing atmana, and then it's observe the temperature. But if they are standing on a gderot, is a problem. Veitmina matmin, and the one who put it together cover it with blanket in order to keep the warm until the following morning, because this type of atmana you can do it on a Friday night, as long as we explained earlier last session that it's as long as it's not bedavar mosif hevel, which means that it's not add more temperature, it's not more smoking, which means if it's not in condition in any form or shape that he makes that pot warmer, is just observing the current temperature that the pot has. Veidlik hamadlik, and that's the time to light the Shabbat candle. So the Braita continue. Veshokhe, meaning the one who blow the third blast of the shofar, he wait a very short period of time. It's called kedei tzliyat dag katan. So he is there for a short period of time until the time of poses that fry a small fish, or kedei leadbik par batanur, or to stick bread to the side of the oven. Vetokea umeria vetokea veshovet, which means he make the sound of teki'ah and sound of trua like the staccato, right? And again the sound of teki'ah, and except Shabbat. So we concluded, Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Chanina, שמעתי שאם בא להדליק אחר 6 תקיעות, I heard if a person was about to light the Shabbat candles after the 6th blast of the shofar, madlik, he can still light the candle. Why? It's not for sure, it's not לכתחילה, but it says שהרי נתנו חכמים שיעור לחזן הכנסת להוליך שופרו לביתו. The one who is the Chazan HaKnesset, the one who is like the person that lead the service, he has a special spot at the top of one of the roof, and he from there blast his shofar. Is most probably a very big ability to make the sounds that everyone hears. Now he need the time, short, very short, but he need a short time to do what? To take his shofar to his house. Now shofar is a muktzeh, and you cannot carry shofar on Shabbat, Rashi said. And since the Chazan needs to carry the shofar with him after the finishing blessing the shofar, it means that it still have a short period of time until the Shabbat begins. Amar lo, or some said Amru lo, im ken natata dvarecha leshi'urihin. So he said, if that's the time, then, so you have rendered your statement subject of what? Of circumstances, which will not apply to everybody, to uniform, to all, because it can change. Ela says, no, that's not for public what happened to that person. In general, Shabbat began right after the 6th Teki'ah, the 6th blast of the shofar. מקום צנוע יש לו לחזן הכנסת בראש גגו. They placed at the top of the roof a special spot for the chazan to hide his shofar. ששם מניח שופרו, that he put his shofar right after he blasted. לפי שאין מטלטלין לו את השופר ולא את החצוצרות. Because the Torah said at the time of the war, or the time of the great sorrow, they use the harp, right, the chatzotzra. So since it was a special time, we're not allowed to carry after the Shabbat begins, even in a private domain, because it's muktzeh, right? So therefore, no, they built for him at the top of the roof a special spot that he put the shofar there. Vehatanya shofar mitatel v'chatzotzrot b'nam mitatlim. So they said the shofar can carry and the others not. Why? So they said here that in the ancient time they used to use the shofar for other purpose. Since the shofar have this type of bending inside, so they used to pull water for the little baby with the shofar and give it to them. And chatzotzra, the harp, is straight, so they never did it. So, and since they blessed the shofar is forbidden on Shabbat, so they said that the chatzotzra, the harp, is muktzeh, because it's called kli shemelachto li'isur, because you use it for something forbidden. But shofar is not a muktzeh. So basically, they try to divide it between shofar and the harp. Amar Rav Yosef responds and he said, Lo kashya. It's not a question. Kan beyachid, kan betzibur. So it means that you have a difference between shofar that belongs to an individual, that he can use it for other purposes, such as pulling water to give it to a baby, right? So it's not a muktzeh. But if it's a shofar that belongs to the public, so you cannot use it for other purposes, and therefore that shofar is under the category of muktzeh. Abaye disagree with this. We differentiate between the private versus public shofar, and he said, Amar le Abaye said to Rav Yosef, Ubiyachid lemay chazi. You tell me that you have a certain use for a private shofar for individual, that you said that it's not a muktzeh. What do you mean by that? He said, Ho'il vera'ui legamea bo mayim, because it fits to use, since it's suitable to do what? To give water on there to whom? Letinok betzibur nami chaze legamea letinok ani. So just, you see this statement, it means that because the mouth of the shofar is bent, so one can pour a little water at a time. So if the shofar belonging to the community is also suitable to feed water to a poor infant whose sustenance is provided by community. So what's the difference? So that's basically the conclusion of what we studied today, and now we're going to a practical halachot. Several practical halachot we studied today. One is called tiltul kli gadol beShabbat, which is when we need to move a large vessel on Shabbat. So the Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 308 said, any vessel, even a very large one. I'm reading here from the excellent book by Rabbi Steinsaltz, also my friend Rabbi Kitz is involved in this project, publication of Koren, and it said as follows, this is the translation of the Shulchan Aruch. Any vessel, even a large, very large one, does not lose its status as a vessel, and one is permitted to move it on Shabbat. This ruling is in contrast to the statement of Rabbi and Rav Yosef, in accordance with the conclusion reached in Tractate Talmud. A vessel that is made to permanently remain in a single place and not to be moved cannot become ritually impure if it holds for tise'ah. Another important halacha is the idea of stars we learned today, which is the differentiation between 1 star, 2 star, 3 stars and onward. This is a Rambam in Hilchot Shabbat chapter 5, and he said as follows. In practice, night begins with when 3 small stars are visible. The Mishnah added and he said even they are dispersed in the sky. The Taz and Magen Avraham adds and he said because we are not considered expert in the parameters of medium-sized stars. So for example, on a fast day, medium-sized stars are sufficient to constitute the end of the fast, so as not to impose on the public to fast more than they possible. We also, as you know, we learn about the well of Miriam, and we learn also the point of doing work Bein השמשות, which means העושה מלאכה בשני בין השמשות. One who performs a labor during the twilight. So the case of Mishna said that if it was in twilight on Shabbat Eve, and the twilight at the conclusion of Shabbat is liable of bring a sin offering, because it's basically the type of melacha. Another thing is we talk about that we are not expert in the measure of the sages. Atum de lo kaim lechun b'shiur de Rabbanan. One who's not expert in duration of twilight should light the Shabbat lights while the sun is still visible at the treetops. On the cloudy day, when it's difficult to see it, one should watch the roosters. When the roosters sit on the roosts, one should light the Shabbat light. Since the roosters sit in the twilight, in the field one should watch when the crows return to the roosts at the light. That's the way the Rabbah said. And the last one, we studied the halakha about the Teki'ot, which is fascinating. In Jewish history, it was a time, the Rambam said it in the Hilchot Shabbat chapter 5, that when the Jewish people live in their land, and they will sound 6 shofar blasts before Shabbat to inform the people to stop walking. It was customary in the sacred communities, and as I said, I attest to that in my childhood, that a special messenger will inform the people a half hour or an hour before Shabbat that Shabbat was approaching, so that they will complete their Shabbat preparations. This practice replace the blast of the shofar, and it's appropriate to inform people that Shabbat is approaching. So as we said, you don't hear today people blow the shofar, but you have still a community that they have the siren before Shabbat. I remember one time when I was in Beit Shemesh, for example, or other places that they have the siren before Shabbat a little earlier to make sure that people close the businesses and prepare themselves for Shabbat.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim malachai elyoin mihi melech malchai ameluchim hakudosh burichi Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim